There was no warning, no argument, no sudden change in behavior. It just happened. It started one evening after I'd gotten back from work. I walked through the door, the usual quiet settling over the house. The kind of quiet that makes you question whether you've stepped into someone else's life for a moment. I put my bag down, slid off my shoes, and called out, "Masha, you home?" No response. I wasn't expecting a parade or a fanfare, but usually, I'd hear her from another room, or there'd be some sign that she was around. A few moments passed. Still nothing. I checked the kitchen. Empty. The living room. Also empty. The only thing that greeted me was the faint smell of burnt garlic. Her signature, the smell of a rushed dinner when she's trying to multitask between calls and deadlines. I looked at the clock. 7:30 p.m. It was late for her not to be home, but nothing too outrageous. Maybe she was out with a client or running late from a meeting. I tried calling her. Twice. No answer. I sent her a quick text, something casual, just to check in. "Hey, you good? Where are you?" The kind of message I've sent 100 times before. But this time, I had this nagging feeling, like there was something just off about the whole situation. Another 20 minutes passed before I decided to go ahead and eat without her. At this point, I was just getting restless. Maybe she was caught in traffic. Maybe she was working late. But why hadn't she let me know? Masha's a planner. She always keeps me in the loop. This felt different. It wasn't like her to just vanish. I started eating alone, as the seconds seemed to stretch into minutes. Another text came through from her. I picked it up with a sigh of relief. "Sorry, it's been a long day. With Alex. Might be late. Not sure when I'll be home." Alex. I paused. Alex was her boss, or at least that's what I thought. He was a guy she talked about a lot. They were always together in meetings, collaborating on projects, and sometimes after work too, grabbing drinks to talk shop. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. But tonight, something about the way she mentioned his name felt different. I responded quickly. "No problem. Just wanted to check in. Hope everything's going okay." The reply came fast. "Yeah, everything's fine. Don't worry." The clock continued its slow march. By 9:45, my thoughts started to feel more like a slow burn in the back of my mind. It wasn't like Masha to leave me hanging this long. If anything, she was the one who made sure we kept in touch during the day, sending memes or quick texts to keep the connection going. But tonight, it felt like the space between us was growing, and the distance was becoming more than just physical. At 10:30, I heard the front door click open. I stood up, moving toward the sound. She walked in. Masha. Her face was a little flushed, but that wasn't unusual. She looked tired, worn out, even. But I didn't say anything immediately. I just watched her drop her purse onto the chair, kick off her shoes, and stretch her arms up above her head with a sigh. She looked at me, then glanced quickly away. "Hey," she said, her voice tight. "Sorry I'm late. It's been one of those days." I couldn't read her tone. There was something in the way she avoided eye contact that made my chest tighten. "I was trying to reach you earlier," I said, trying to keep things light, but my voice sounded a little more anxious than I intended. "You've been out with Alex for a while, huh?" She froze for a split second before giving a quick nod. "Yeah, we had to talk about some things for the project. Late meeting. You know how it goes." I nodded, trying to swallow the question that was burning in my mind. But I didn't ask. "Not yet. I just thought I'd let you know. You don't have to worry about me." "I'm fine," she added quickly, her voice almost defensive. I watched her carefully, the weight of her words hanging in the air between us. There was something there, some edge to her tone that wasn't like usual. The way she kept avoiding my gaze, the way she was pulling away more and more. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, but I couldn't figure out what it was. She brushed past me without another word, disappearing into the bedroom. I sat there, unsure of what to do. Everything in me screamed to follow, to press her for answers, but I didn't. I stayed still. I let her retreat. I ate the rest of my dinner in silence, the food now cold, the taste bland and unsatisfying. It wasn't the first time I had felt the distance between us, but tonight it felt different. I went to bed later, long after she had already fallen asleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the muffled sounds of her breathing next to me. I wanted to reach out, to pull her closer, but I didn't. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something she wasn't telling me. Something deeper. The next morning, when I woke up, she was already gone. No kiss goodbye, no have a good day text, nothing. just the faint sound of the front door closing quietly behind her. And with that, the silence in the house grew louder. The next few days were strange. Every morning, I woke up and went about my routine. But there was always this lingering feeling of something missing. Masha was still coming home late, still sending the occasional short text, but there was no warmth in her words anymore. No love. It was like we were just two strangers passing through the same space. I could feel the distance between us growing, and no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, it gnawed at me. On the third night, I came home to the same emptiness. The house was quiet, just like before, and once again, there was no sign of her. No hey, how's your day? Text, no call, no nothing. I tried to push it out of my mind as I heated up leftovers for dinner. As I ate, I tried to focus on work, tried to keep myself busy, but it was hard not to notice how different things felt. I couldn't tell if I was overthinking or if she really was pulling away from me, but the silence in our home was deafening. By 9 p.m., I was getting restless. I decided to try calling her again. It went to voicemail, just like it had the last few times. I left a message, trying to sound casual, but I could feel the frustration in my voice. Hey, it's me. Just wanted to see how you're doing. Call me when you get a chance. Love you. I had hoped for some kind of reassurance, some kind of response, but once again, there was nothing. Around 10:30, I heard the door unlock. Masha stepped in, looking as tired as ever. She didn't even glance at me when she walked past. She was wearing the same outfit from work, a blazer that looked like it had been on for hours, her hair slightly messy, as if she'd been running around all day. She kicked off her shoes and dropped her purse on the couch. I was sitting in the living room, watching her every move. For a moment, I didn't say anything. I just waited, watching her as she moved around the room. She was so cold, so distant. Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Masha, what's going on? I asked. My voice was calm, but I couldn't hide the undercurrent of worry. Why have you been so distant lately? I've been trying to reach you, and when you do get home, it's like you're a different person. We haven't really talked, in days. She froze in place for a moment, her back to me. Then she slowly turned around. Her face was blank, but there was a flicker in her eyes, like she was calculating how much to say. I'm just busy, okay? She said, her voice flat, almost irritated. Work has been crazy. You knew this was going to happen. She paused, and for a second, I thought I saw a flash of something else. But it was gone as quickly as it came. I'm fine, really. Stop making a big deal out of nothing. Her words cut through me. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to argue, to demand answers, but I stayed silent. This wasn't the Masha I knew. The woman I married would have talked things through, would have tried to explain. But not her. Not now. I watched her walk past me, heading toward the bedroom. Where are you going? I asked, almost desperate for her attention. I'm going to bed, she said without turning around. I'm tired. We can talk later if you really want to. I didn't know what to do with myself. I had tried to reach her, to get her to open up, but it was like talking to a wall. She had built this fortress around herself, and I was locked out. I didn't follow her to the bedroom. I couldn't. I stayed in the living room, staring at the empty space between us, feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. The next morning, I woke up early, hoping that things might be different. Maybe she'd be more open. Maybe we could have an honest conversation. But when I came into the kitchen, I found her already up, already dressed, already gone. She left without so much as a goodbye. It was like she had just slipped away, like I had been erased from her life. I stood there, my hand frozen on the doorknob, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. She hadn't even left a note. No, have a good day. No, see you later. Just nothing. That afternoon, when I checked my phone, I saw that Masha had sent me a message. I'll be working late again tonight. Don't wait up. I didn't respond. What was there to say? Everything felt wrong. She was slipping away, and I had no idea how to stop it. As the days passed, the pattern continued. I would come home to an empty house. No calls, no texts, no sign of her. It felt like I was living in a ghost town. I started to wonder if this was what it was going to be like from now on. Was she already gone? Had she moved on, and I just hadn't realized it? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing her, but the more I tried to reach out, the more she withdrew. It was like I was holding onto a rope that was slowly slipping through my fingers. Then, one night, everything changed. I came home to find her sitting in the living room, waiting for me. But she wasn't alone. There was someone else with her. a man I didn't recognize. And as I walked into the room, Masha looked up at me, her eyes cold and distant. Alex is here, she said, her voice almost robotic. We need to talk. And in that moment, I knew. Whatever I thought this was, whatever I thought was happening, it had just taken a turn for the worse. I stood there, frozen at the entrance of the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. The man sitting beside Masha looked up at me, his expression one I couldn't read. He was tall, well-dressed in a sharp suit, and had the kind of confident smile that made me feel instantly small. Masha didn't even look surprised to see me standing there, staring at them both. In fact, she barely seemed to register my presence at all. Alex is here, Masha repeated, her voice flat, almost mechanical. We need to talk. I didn't know what to say. My mind was racing, my thoughts tangled in confusion. Alex? Why was he here? And why the hell did it feel like I was intruding on something I shouldn't be a part of? I looked at her, trying to find something familiar in her eyes. A flicker of the woman I married. But there was nothing. Just coldness. It was as though she had shut off everything that made her Masha, the warm, loving woman I had spent years with. She was gone. And in her place sat this stranger, emotionally distant and indifferent. Alex cleared his throat, his gaze flickering between me and Masha. It's not what you think, he said, leaning back slightly in his chair, as if he was comfortable in this situation. Too comfortable. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Instead, all I could do was stare at the both of them. Masha's eyes never left me. She sat there, her posture perfect, her legs crossed, the picture of calm composure. We need to be honest with you, she said finally, her voice quiet, but it carried a weight I couldn't ignore. Things between us have changed. I've been thinking a lot lately, and I need to be upfront with you. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I wanted to say something, anything, but I couldn't. I just stood there, paralyzed, as the reality of the situation started to sink in. We've been seeing each other, Masha continued, her gaze unwavering. Alex and I, for a while now. My heart dropped. I felt a sharp, painful jolt run through me, like I had been struck by something unyielding. I was speechless, completely stunned. What do you mean seeing each other? My voice came out hoarse, barely a whisper, but the words felt like they were coming from someone else. You what? Since when? Masha finally looked away from me, her eyes dropping to the floor. She seemed tired, defeated. It was almost like she had rehearsed what she was about to say, but now that the words were out, she couldn't bring herself to meet my gaze anymore. Since a few months ago, she admitted quietly. It started innocently enough, just talking about work, but things escalated. She stopped, seemingly choosing her words carefully. And then we both realized that it was more than just professional, that we had feelings for each other, and that it wasn't something I could ignore anymore. Alex shifted slightly in his chair, glancing at me briefly before speaking. We never meant to hurt you, he said, his voice oddly calm, even though I felt like I was being punched in the gut. But Masha's right. This isn't something that just happened overnight. It's been building up for a while. I looked at him, at Alex, and for the first time, I noticed the way he was sitting there so comfortably. Like he belonged. Like he was the one who should be here, not me. I wanted to scream, to throw something, anything, at him. But instead, I just stood there, numb. You've been seeing each other behind my back? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, still trying to process the betrayal. For how long, Masha? How long have you been lying to me? Her eyes were cold now, as if she had shut me out entirely. I'm sorry, she said, but the apology felt empty. Like she had said it out of obligation, not because she actually felt it. I didn't know how to tell you. It's been hard, but it's not something I can keep hidden anymore. The words felt like they were suffocating me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I wanted to collapse, to break down and cry, but I didn't. I stayed rooted to the spot, staring at her, at both of them, as the reality of what she had just admitted to hit me like a freight train. I had never seen her like this. She wasn't the woman I knew anymore. Alex stood up slowly, his chair scraping across the floor, a sound that made my blood run cold. He extended a hand toward me, like some kind of peace offering. Look, he said, his voice low but steady. I know this is hard to hear, but I think it's better for you to know the truth now. I didn't take his hand. I couldn't. Instead, I turned to Masha. And you? What do you want from me? To just sit here and accept this? My voice cracked at the end, the anger and disbelief breaking through all at once. I want you to understand, she said quietly, her voice still emotionless. I want you to understand that things aren't the same anymore, that I can't keep pretending that they are. The words hung in the air between us, suffocating everything else in the room. I felt like I was drowning, like the ground beneath me had disappeared. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but instead, I just stood there, staring at the woman who had been my everything, and the man who had become part of our lives without my knowing. And then, just as I thought I couldn't take any more of this, Masha stood up, her face hardening. "I think it's time you go," she said flatly, her eyes locking onto mine. "I've made my decision." The world seemed to stop. I didn't know what to say, what to do. I could feel the tears threatening to spill, but I didn't let them fall. I couldn't let her see me break. I couldn't let him see me weak. So, I turned without another word, my heart shattered and my mind a whirlwind of confusion and anger. But as I stepped out the door, the finality of it hit me. I had just lost everything. I didn't know where to go. I didn't have a plan. My whole world had just unraveled, and I was standing there in the middle of the wreckage, trying to make sense of it all. I grabbed my coat, my keys, and without another glance back at the house, at Masha, at Alex, I left. I wasn't sure where my feet were taking me, but it didn't matter. The weight of what had just happened was too heavy for me to carry in that moment. I found myself at the bar down the street, the same one I used to go to with Masha after work. We'd sit in the corner booth, share a bottle of wine, and laugh about the day. But tonight, the place felt like a foreign land. The music was too loud, the lights too bright. I ordered a drink anyway, something to drown the thoughts in my head, to give me a little bit of silence. The bartender, a guy who barely knew my name, slid a whiskey across the counter without asking. It didn't matter. I needed something strong. I knocked it back in one go, the burn in my throat doing little to quell the storm inside of me. I didn't want to think about Masha, about Alex, about what they had done. But I couldn't stop. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the way she'd looked at me with that cold detachment, like I was just another obstacle in her way. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this? I thought we were different. I thought we were stronger than this. I leaned my elbows on the bar, my hands shaking. I was furious. But more than that, I felt small. Like everything I thought I knew about my life had been a lie. How could I not have seen the signs? How could I have been so blind? The bartender slid another drink toward me, but I didn't want it. I didn't need more alcohol to numb the pain. What I needed was to get out of here, to clear my head. I left a bill on the counter and walked out into the cold night air, the chill biting at my skin. I wandered through the streets, not knowing where I was going. The city felt like it was swallowing me whole. The bright lights, the rush of people, it all seemed so empty. By the time I made it back to the apartment, I wasn't sure what I was expecting. Maybe I thought Masha would be there, waiting for me with an apology, some kind of explanation. But no, the apartment was just as I had left it, cold, empty, and silent. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, staring at the place that had once been my home. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe I was hoping for some kind of answer. But the truth was, I was scared. Scared that this was the end. Scared that Masha had already moved on, and I was just too blind to see it. I sat down on the couch, running my hands through my hair. What had happened? Where had everything gone wrong? How did I go from sharing a life with someone I loved to this? It felt like I was in a dream I couldn't wake up from. The phone buzzed in my pocket. I checked the screen, half hoping it was Masha. Maybe she had realized the mistake she made. Maybe she was coming back. But when I saw the name on the screen, my stomach dropped. It was from Alex. I stared at the message for a moment, unsure of what to do. I had never been in a situation like this before. How was I supposed to respond to the man who had taken my wife from me? I know this is hard to understand, but I'm not trying to make things worse. Masha and I talked after you left. She's not happy. This isn't what she wanted, either. I just wanted you to hear it from me, not her. I care about her, but she needs space right now. I'm not asking you to forgive us. I just wanted you to know the truth. The words hit me like a slap to the face. My hands clenched into fists as I read them over and over again, trying to make sense of what Alex was telling me. Masha wasn't happy. That was the part that stung the most. I thought I had given her everything. I thought we had a life together, something real. But I wasn't enough. I didn't know what to do with this message. I wasn't sure I wanted to know the truth. But I didn't have a choice. I couldn't pretend like none of this was happening anymore. I wanted to call him, scream at him, tell him that he was a coward for hiding behind messages, that he should have told me everything face to face. But I didn't. I couldn't find the words. Instead, I threw my phone on the couch beside me and sat there, staring at it. My mind was a whirlwind. The man I had considered a friend had betrayed me. My wife, no, my ex-wife now, had chosen him over me. And I was left alone in the ruins of everything we built. It was like the ground had shifted beneath me, and I had no idea how to find solid ground again. The next morning, I woke up on the couch. My neck ached, my body stiff from the uncomfortable position I had slept in. I didn't bother looking at the time. I didn't care. I was numb. But as I got up, something caught my eye, a small photo on the table by the door. It was a picture of Masha and me from a trip we had taken to the coast a few years ago. We were both laughing, carefree, before everything fell apart. For the first time in days, I felt a tear escape my eye. Not out of anger, but out of loss. Because no matter how much I tried to tell myself that I was better off without her, I couldn't escape the feeling that I had just lost the one person I thought I couldn't live without. And as I stared at the picture, I realized I had no idea what came next. I spent the next few days in a kind of haze. The world outside kept moving, people went on with their lives, but I was stuck in the wreckage of my own. Every time I looked at the phone, every time I checked the clock, I thought of Masha, where she was, what she was doing, and more than anything, I thought about him. Alex. That name had become a constant echo in my head, a reminder of everything I had lost. And yet, there I was, still wondering if there was any way to make sense of it all. The apartment felt like a ghost town. The silence was unbearable, the air thick with all the things left unsaid. It didn't matter how many times I tried to distract myself, the questions lingered. Why hadn't she just told me? Why did she wait until the moment it was too late? The feeling of betrayal was one thing, but the isolation I felt in those first few days was something else entirely. It was like I was no longer a part of her world, like I had been erased without even realizing it. I decided I needed to get out of the apartment. A change of scenery, a walk in the city, it didn't matter. Anything to clear my head. I left in the late afternoon, without a clear destination, just wandering through the streets. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the buildings, and everything felt just a little bit too bright, like the world had gone too sharp, too clear. It wasn't until I walked past our old cafe, the one Masha and I used to visit on Sundays, that I felt a pang of something. It was silly almost. A place that had once been filled with laughter and light now seemed empty. But I couldn't stop myself. I walked in. The smell of coffee hit me the moment I stepped through the door. The same barista, same old music playing softly in the background. Nothing had changed. And for a moment, it felt like nothing had changed at all. But then I saw her. Masha was sitting at a table near the window, a coffee cup in front of her, her head bent over a notebook. She looked up when the door opened, her eyes meeting mine for a split second before she quickly looked away. For a moment, I just stood there, my feet frozen to the floor. I hadn't expected to see her, not like this. Not so normal. She was just sitting there, as if we weren't living in a nightmare, as if everything hadn't just fallen apart. She looked different. Not the woman I knew, not the woman I had spent years with. Her posture was tense, her expression cold. It was like she was pretending that nothing had happened between us, like she was pretending we didn't have a history. I could see it in the way she avoided looking at me, in the way she clutched her coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. I took a step forward, but then stopped. What was I even supposed to say? Hey, so I found out you've been cheating on me with Alex. How's that going for you? No, that wasn't how this conversation was going to happen. But the words were on the tip of my tongue, and for a moment, I was paralyzed by the weight of everything unsaid. Do you need something? She finally asked, her voice distant, flat. I blinked, taken aback. Was that really how this was going to go? No apology, no explanation, just, do you need something? I started, my voice coming out hoarse. I cleared my throat. I didn't know you'd be here. I didn't think. You didn't think what? She interrupted, still not looking at me. You didn't think I'd be anywhere? That I'd be too busy with Alex? Her words were sharp, cutting through the air between us. She wasn't angry, though. It wasn't rage that was fueling her, but something colder. Indifference. I'm just here for coffee. Like anyone else. I didn't know what to say to that. My mouth felt dry, my mind scrambling for something to hold on to. Masha, this isn't how it should be. You don't just. I stopped myself. What was the point? She had already made her choice. She exhaled, as if she had already heard enough. Look, I don't want to make this harder for you. I'm sorry things ended up this way. I didn't mean to hurt you. I almost laughed at that. It wasn't a real apology. It was hollow. And yet, it was everything she had to offer at this point. I realized then, looking at her, this woman who had once been my everything, that we were already strangers to each other. I didn't think you'd come here, she continued, her voice softer now. I thought, maybe you'd stay away for good. Why would you think that? I asked, barely able to hold back the bitterness that was creeping into my voice. Why would you think I'd just let you go without saying anything? Masha finally met my gaze, but there was nothing in her eyes anymore. Because I'm not the same person anymore, she said quietly. And neither are you. That stung, more than I expected, but it was the truth, wasn't it? We had both changed. We weren't who we used to be. She had already moved on, and I was just holding on to a version of her that no longer existed. I stood there for a long moment, watching her, not sure what to do. But I knew, deep down, that I couldn't stay here, clinging to something that had already slipped away. Without another word, I turned and left the cafe. I didn't look back, but as I walked down the street, I realized something. This wasn't just about losing her. It was about losing the version of myself that I had built around her. I had to figure out how to move on from that too. The days that followed were a blur of numbness. It was as if my life had become a series of fragmented moments, disjointed and impossible to piece together. I'd wake up each morning with the weight of the night before pressing on my chest, and the days bled into one another in a haze of half-forgotten conversations, empty hours, and restless nights. I couldn't seem to escape the ghost of Masha, the woman I loved, the woman who had walked away. I tried to keep myself busy, throw myself into work, even reach out to friends I hadn't spoken to in months. But nothing felt real. I could feel the echoes of my old life constantly bouncing around inside my head. I was just going through the motions. Then one evening, just as I was about to call it a night, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, expecting it to be some automated update or maybe one of those random spam messages. But when I saw the name, my heart skipped a beat. It was from Masha. I stared at the text for a long time, unsure whether I should open it. Was this an apology? Was she coming to her senses, finally ready to explain what had happened? Or was it another hollow message to remind me of the space between us, the distance she had created? Finally, I tapped the screen, my fingers trembling. Can we talk? I think it's time we have a real conversation. Meet me at the cafe tomorrow, 3 p.m. Please. It was simple. It wasn't a plea, but it wasn't cold either. It was almost like an invitation. I didn't know what to make of it. My first instinct was to ignore it. What could we possibly say to each other now? But something, maybe desperation, maybe curiosity, compelled me to agree. I arrived at the cafe the next afternoon, the same one where I had seen her just days before. The place felt different now, not warm and familiar, but strange, like a place I didn't belong anymore. I scanned the room, and there she was, sitting at a table by the window. She looked up as soon as I entered, her eyes meeting mine with a quiet intensity that made my pulse race. She didn't smile. She didn't wave me over. She just watched me as I approached, her face unreadable. I sat down across from her, my heart pounding, unsure of what to say. So, I began, trying to find my footing. This is unexpected. Masha nodded, her fingers lightly tapping on her coffee cup. I know, she said softly, her voice almost hesitant. I wasn't sure if I should reach out to you. But I think we need to talk. About what exactly? I asked, trying to keep my emotions in check, but the frustration I felt started to creep through. About the fact that you've been seeing Alex behind my back. About how you just shut me out without any explanation. What could you possibly say now that would make this any easier? Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite place, but she didn't look away. It's not about making it easier, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's about being honest. About the things I've been hiding. About why things ended up this way. She paused, as if she was choosing her words carefully. And it's about me, about the person I've become. I felt a tightness in my chest. I had never seen Masha like this. She had always been so sure of herself, so composed. But now, she seemed fragile. The woman sitting across from me was not the confident, ambitious woman I had known. She seemed lost, like she was searching for something in me, something that had disappeared between us. "I've been running from this," she continued, her voice breaking slightly. "I didn't know how to face you, how to face myself. But pretending it didn't happen, it wasn't right. I thought I could just move on, but I can't. I need you to understand why I did what I did." I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. I wanted to yell at her, demand answers. But I didn't. Part of me wanted to hear what she had to say, to understand where this all went wrong, even if it hurt. "So why now?" I asked, my voice tight. "Why reach out after everything?" "Because I need to own what I did," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't just keep pretending. I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust. But I need you to hear me out, for once, without anger, without judgment." I didn't say anything for a long moment. The words she was saying were so different from the cold indifference I had seen in her when she walked away from me. She seemed sincere. But how could I trust that? How could I believe anything she said after everything? "You want me to just forgive you?" I asked, the bitterness slipping into my voice despite my best efforts. "Is that what this is about? You want me to let it all go?" "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to understand that it wasn't easy for me, and that I wasn't running from you, or us, because I didn't care. I was running because I didn't know how to stop the mess I had made." Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to walk away, to never look back. But something in the way she said it, something in her eyes, made me hesitate. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," I said quietly, the truth hitting me harder than I expected. "You took everything and just walked away, without a second thought." She didn't respond right away. She just sat there, her face reflecting the weight of what I had said. "I don't expect you to," she finally whispered. "But I'm not asking for trust. I'm asking for understanding. I need you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I was just lost. I didn't know how to find my way back." I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in a long while. And for a moment, I almost wanted to believe her. But then the memories flooded back. The nights she stayed late with Alex, the silence between us, the way she'd pulled away from me without warning. The truth hit me hard. There was no going back. There was no finding my way back to the life we had before. Too much had been broken. But there was one thing I knew for certain. We were both lost now. The silence between us stretched on for what felt like hours, the weight of her words hanging in the air like a storm waiting to break. I could see the emotion in her eyes now, the cracks in her facade that I hadn't noticed before. The Masha I knew had always been composed, always the one who kept things in control. But now, sitting across from me, she looked fragile, broken in a way I had never seen. It was hard to tell whether it was guilt, regret, or something else entirely that made her look so lost. I had to remind myself that I was sitting here, too, still trying to process everything, still caught in the confusion of betrayal, hurt, and anger. It wasn't just her world that had been shattered, it was mine, too. I could feel the old emotions, the ones I had buried deep, starting to surface. The anger, the sadness, the disappointment. They weren't ready to let go, and they never would. But I couldn't stay in this moment forever. The past few weeks had been torture, and this conversation, this sudden shift in her demeanor, had cracked something open in me that I wasn't ready to deal with. "You're right," I said, breaking the silence. My voice was raw, shaky. "I don't know how to process this. I don't know how to hear this and just forgive you, or even understand why this happened." Her eyes widened a little, like she hadn't expected me to say that. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I never thought I could just erase what I did. I know what I've done is unforgivable to you, and I get that now. I just want you to know that it wasn't about you. It wasn't because I didn't love you." I let out a bitter laugh, the sound escaping before I could stop it. "Love? Then why did you do this? How could you hurt me like this if you loved me?" She flinched at my words, but I wasn't sorry for saying them. I needed to get this out. Needed to make her understand what she had done. "You broke everything. You don't just walk away from someone like that unless you've already checked out. You didn't just hurt me, Masha. You broke me." The tears that had been welling up in her eyes now started to fall. But I didn't look away. I couldn't look away. The pain I saw in her face was a reflection of the pain inside me. But that didn't change anything. It didn't change the fact that she had made a choice. A choice to be with him. A choice that didn't involve me. I never meant for it to happen like this, she whispered, wiping her eyes. I didn't want to hurt you, but I was suffocating. I was drowning in everything. My career, the pressure, and then Alex. I thought maybe he could help me breathe again, but I was wrong. I was just lost. I sat back, taking all of this in. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. Was I supposed to feel sorry for her? Was I supposed to sympathize with the fact that she felt trapped by her own life, her own choices? Because all I could feel was the hollow ache of abandonment. You didn't talk to me, I said quietly, the words catching in my throat. You didn't tell me how you felt. You didn't give me a chance to help, to fix things. I would have been there for you, Masha. But you shut me out. You chose him. Her face twisted in agony, the guilt obvious in every line of her expression. I know, and I regret it every day. I don't know why I didn't come to you. I don't know what I was thinking. I just didn't know how to handle everything. I thought if I could just get away from the pressure, from the weight of it all, I'd feel better. But it wasn't that simple. It never is. I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping across the floor. I couldn't sit there any longer. I needed space. I needed to breathe. I don't know if I can do this, I said, my voice tight. I don't know if I can sit here and listen to you talk about how sorry you are, how lost you were, and pretend like it makes sense. I've spent too many nights wondering what went wrong, trying to fix this, and you. I paused, taking a deep breath. You just let it all fall apart. Masha stood up quickly, her hands trembling as she reached out to me. Please, don't leave like this. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to understand that I wasn't trying to hurt you. I never wanted to hurt you. I looked at her hand, then at her face, and for a moment, I felt that old pull, the desire to reach out, to forgive, to make everything okay again. But the truth was, I couldn't do it. I couldn't just pretend that everything was fine. I couldn't ignore what she had done to me, what she had done to us. You can't take it back, I said quietly. You can't fix this. What's done is done. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. Her face crumpled at my words, but I didn't feel anything. Not anymore. I had reached the point where there was nothing left to give. The woman I had loved, the woman who had meant everything to me, was gone. And all that was left was the shattered pieces of a life I couldn't get back. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving her standing there, her hand still outstretched. I didn't look back. The days after that conversation felt like a fog lifting, a slow and painful shedding of everything I had known. Walking away from Masha was harder than I ever imagined. But the truth was clear. We had both lost something, and there was no turning back. I didn't need to keep searching for answers in the past or trying to fix what had been broken. It was time to rebuild. It was time to start over. For the first time in a long while, I let myself feel something other than pain. I allowed myself to grieve, but more importantly, I allowed myself to heal. I took the time to remember who I was before Masha, before the life we built together. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I started spending more time with friends I had neglected while wrapped up in the quiet tension of my marriage. I went for long walks in the park, rediscovered old hobbies, and even started writing again, something I hadn't done in years. I needed to find myself, and I realized that the only way to do that was by giving myself permission to live without the weight of the past constantly pulling me down. Weeks passed, and one evening, I found myself sitting at that same cafe, the place that had once been a symbol of everything I had lost. But now, as I sat there with a cup of coffee in my hands, it didn't feel like a place of sadness anymore. It felt like a place where new beginnings could grow. I wasn't running from the past anymore. I had embraced it, learned from it, and now I was ready for whatever came next. The door swung open, and I glanced up, half expecting to see Masha walking in. But it wasn't her. It was someone else, a woman who smiled at me as she passed by. I smiled back, not out of habit, but because it felt good to be seen. To feel like there was hope for something new, even if I wasn't sure what that might look like just yet. The more I reflected on everything that had happened, the more I realized that sometimes the hardest moments of our lives are the ones that lead us to the most unexpected places. They break us down, but in the process, they also make room for something better. It wasn't just about forgiving Masha or moving on from the past. It was about learning to love myself again, learning to trust in my own strength. And as I sat there, watching the sun set behind the city skyline, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: peace. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. Whatever came next, I was ready.